We ready, Jeremy? All right, welcome back to another edition of Cannabis in Canada with Jason Wilcox, coming to you from British Columbia, Canada. Kicking on the set today at Green Cross Society of British Columbia. Sitting here with Oriel, a wonderful patient with an excellent story, a homeopath by nature, and here to tell us a little bit of her story about how cannabis helps her. And we're going to get into a little bit about some of the changes the MMPR are bringing and how they're going to affect you. Welcome, Oriel. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Did I pronounce that right, or was that wrong?
No, that's perfect. That's great.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about cannabis and how cannabis has helped your life. And let's just say, hypothetically, the federal government takes away your medicine or access to it and says you have to go through a mail order system for $8 to $12 a gram. How might that impact you?
Okay, well, those are great questions. So the first question I'll answer is I have had cancer now twice. I have an aggressive type of cancer. It can be absolutely managed and it can be cured, but it takes an awful lot. The first time put me in hospital most of the time for all the treatments. And so the second time, actually a doctor from the cancer agency gave me a few studies that showed how cannabidiols can actually cure my type of cancer. So I embarked on finding out as much as I could about it, and my type of treatment is raw cannabis. So it takes the leaf, it grinds it all fresh, and it produces a juice, and I drink that. Now, why that's important is that has absolutely no THC in it. It has no mind-altering properties. You don't get high, nothing like that.
It hasn't decarboxylated, so of course the THC doesn't activate, and fresh off the plant, it's nothing more than a general herb.
Exactly, but that general herb has the exact CBDs, CBNs that I need to cure my cancer. So I started juicing, and there are other fabulous side effects to juicing cannabis besides what it's doing during chemotherapy, and I'm still in chemotherapy, and most people say, wow, you look so healthy.
I was just going to say you do.
Because the plant itself has amazing vitamins, it has glucose, so that while I'm it's like doing wheatgrass on steroids, basically. So, so while I'm getting all the other properties, I'm also getting a lift, which helps me go on and helps me keep going and doing what the regular medical oncologists also want me to do. So I'm marrying the two disciplines, and it seems to be working. I'm here. And it seems to be working really well. Now, your other question, did you want me to answer? One of the problems with what's going on right now with the government is that it's not like these laws come into effect and then I can beg, borrow, and steal and buy my medicine. I won't even be able to, because under this ruling, it's just dry goods, and I can't use dry goods. I have no use for it, and it doesn't work for what I need.
And that's where I was going to go to. Now, you are aware that the Coalition Against Repeal, that's something we've been working on for 11 months, and we will be taking non-whole plant products to the federal bench. It has been approved here in British Columbia, and at the same time, though it's been approved or passed through the court system anyway, the justice system for British Columbia, extractions are okay here. However, if they remove personal gardens, to juicing, maybe you can just clear this up for me. This might be a bit rhetorical in nature, but my understanding is to juice, because I'm just getting into it, I take my leaves straight off my plant and put them right into the freezer. So without a garden, how would that then be possible?
It's not, and I'll tell you something else that happens. When you have these large facilities, what you're getting also are plants with mold. Now, if you're looking for bud, it doesn't matter to them if the leaf gets moldy. They just throw it away and they just use the bud, dry it, and sell it, right? But for us juicers, we need beautiful green leaves with no mold, no pesticides, no herbicides, no nothing, and that's going to be an impossibility with how they're doing it. Also, you may take your leaf and put it in the freezer, but because I want the CBDs and CBNs so intact, my person that works with me, they pick it, they juice it within 15 minutes of picking it. So it's cleaned twice, then it's juiced, then it's flash frozen, and then I get it. So that it's the freshest it can be, and everything is as intact as it can be.
So that's also, again, the main thing is the flash freezing part, is that, you know, the federal government realistically juicing is cutting edge, and I've seen incredible changes, but you know, the government's not even implemented non-whole plant products into the MMPR as of yet. And yeah, you know, it's troublesome to think, how would they go about flash freezing, distributing that? I mean, they're already having trouble figuring out how to mail non-whole plant products and even get that right without getting into, or sorry, whole plant products, without even getting into non-whole plant products or flash frozen products that then need freezer trucks to be delivered to the end user. And at what cost would that then rise to use freezer trucks when all this could be done at home safely and effectively in a medical garden? That's kind of how I see it from my perspective anyway.
That's one perspective, and the other perspective is it's a different type of plant that I need. So even if they were thinking of doing it right now, they're, you know, if they're thinking of bud, they're thinking of a higher THC plant. I need a low THC and a very high CBD plant. They're not, you know, they're the type of strains and the growing of the strains and then the nurturing of the strains. That's not in discussion right now. No one's. It's going to be just a big old facility to grow, and not, you know, an herbalist basically who can say, "Wow, I can cross these two plants and get more of the CBD or more of the CBN and higher medicine for these people." And that, I mean, we are using cannabis for medicine purposes, for medicinal purposes, and so that means that we need to know what's in that plant.
I was just going to say, based on that, with the knowing 50 plus cannabinoids that we know exist, and knowing that when they're profiled together, you get different responses. Now, indeed, high CBD we know will reduce seizures, and people don't get the THC high effect if you have it. That being said, chronic pain users often say THC, CBD, CBN, and CBG in concert with high terpenes actually give them pain relief over top of just a high CBD strain. So CBD works in certain areas, you know, in high and in concentrate. I just wonder, in your own opinion, how do you feel about the whole cannabis profile, just the plant and the cannabinoid profiles and the different genetic varieties, you know, and how they may apply to various ailments? You know, indeed, CBD, in your case, is working great for you, high CBDs, and they'll work for certain ailments. Do you believe that the full cannabinoid profile might work for other ailments as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, and for different reasons and for different, for instance, I'm using a resin mixed with an oil to, and a homeopathic cream to grow back nerve endings. And so I have had to play with exactly what you're talking about. So first I had a high CBD resin. Well, that didn't really do it. So I had to have a better mix. And so to be able to go to a place or a person who's growing, who actually knows what's in their plants, and who can say, well, okay, we can choose from this plant, or we can choose a little from that plant, and then we can produce the resin, and then you can use it. And I've had clients who, you know, are very conservative, almost 70 years old, who would never think of using cannabis for anything, and it's actually curing skin ailments when I suggest it for them. So, and that's not the high CBD. So I absolutely think that this is almost a miraculous plant in the sense that it's adaptogenic as well. So we have, in homeopathic and natural biological medicine, we have plants that we call adaptogenic. So let's say your adrenals are whacked out from, you know, too much stress. So we can give you something like an ashwagandha root or something that, and we call it adaptogenic because it helps the gland work. Well, cannabis is a natural adaptogen, so it will work in your body for whatever you need it to work for. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. And so in some ways, it's like this little miracle jewel that's out there.
It's indeed, it's huge. I mean, the indigenous system in our body, and the fact that cannabis is really the only plant in the world that our body's predisposed to accept. And the government's known about this since the 70s. Charlotte's Web that Dr. Sanjay Gupta recently talked about, we knew about that years ago, high CBD strain. That's a ruderalis genetics, ruderalis crossed with another strain. So that's what makes it autoflower, is the ruderalis. And in my own opinion, that's how they bred down the THC, because ruderalis is low in THC but high in CBD. And what they did was they bred it down that way, in my own opinion, because it's an autoflower. When I looked at what Charlotte's Web is, it's an autoflowering strain, and the only strains that autoflower are ruderalis. So this is kind of some of the genetic lineage to where you're looking at the high CBD strains. I just find it interesting that the medical community just now here in Canada are at the tip of the iceberg, but yet the federal government's so quick to say, you're a public safety risk because you're growing cannabis. Like, cannabis spontaneously collects mold and spontaneously combusts in Canada, but in Colorado, we don't see that. Right, so what's your take on that?
Well, I think that we can scare any group of people any way we want to, and we've seen that throughout. You know, if a government wants to move people, they scare them. So here's the scare. It's going to cause fires. It's going to cause mold. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. Well, there's no proof to say that any of that really happens. And from what I understand, house fires, the majority of house fires, if you ask a firefighter, he'll never say it's caused by growth of cannabis, and that, you know, that's not what happens. So I think it's sad, really, and I think that people's fear of the plant has been perpetuated since, I don't know when they closed hemp down, right? And I think that that's what we're seeing. We're seeing old thinking and not what's positive. Any medicine that can be produced cleanly is positive.
I was just going to say, because of your background as a homeopath, I'm looking at it from a plant perspective, and I'm thinking, okay, there's so many hobby growers that use the same equipment as us. They grow exotic herbs and exotic plants, you know, for all these stores, but they're not collecting fire or not collecting mold, and they're not starting fires. But just us cannabis growers are. And I find it very unfortunate that a patient like yourself with cancer, a patient like myself with a terminal illness, can still look half decent far into our illness and attribute that to cannabis and say thanks to cannabis. I just feel it's unfortunate the federal government's backed us into a corner where we need to go to the federal bench of Canada and seek to try to protect personal gardens so people like yourself can keep juicing to protect your illness, and people like myself can try to keep protecting myself from my ailments. So in closing, what would be your take? What would you like to say to the people and to the federal government in relation to the changes that are pending for April Fool's Day 2014?
So your question is a very emotional one for me, because as of April, I really don't know what's going to happen. In my situation, it is a life or death situation. I have, as I said, a very aggressive kind of cancer. I'm a single parent. I have 2 boys who have special needs that I have to take care of. And if the coalition is not successful as of April 1st, I can't just grow my own, because you can't grow enough to juice. So I really don't know what's going to happen to myself or to my family. So I would say that I'm hoping the coalition against repeal is going to be successful and for all patients, and that barring that the government wakes up and hears our pleas and hears our stories and says, if nothing else, let's just put a hold on everything, and let's perhaps engage in some type of roundtable inquiries as to how this would be better done. Because how it's being done right now is a disaster for people like me.
Wow, that was powerful. You see, to the viewers, a lot of you wonder why I wear my glasses. It's because they're doing stories just like this, very potent, very emotional. That's as real as it gets. You know, this is how it affects patients' lives. This is what the coalition is about, and getting the information out there, raising the funds for our attorneys, so that you know, medical patients no longer need to suffer as we do now. The stress alone, I can see, is wearing on many. So. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this work.
No problem. Thank you.
Blossoming at a hydroponic shop in BC. Sales have been smoking hot ever since 2 U.S. states legalized marijuana. The company, called Green Planet, carries everything anyone would need to grow plants, any kind of plants, indoors. In Colorado, it is now legal to have 6 marijuana plants in a secure area.